What is a separation agreement and how do you put one together? Those are great questions that every divorce is going to have to answer, because the purpose of a divorce in Colorado is not only to formally end the marriage or the entity that is around the two spouses, but is also to divide all of the financial stuff. So that's going to be both assets and debts and any other sort of financial question that may be out there, like spousal support. So you want to make sure that your separation agreement is as detailed as possible and you've thought about all the what ifs. So for example, if you have a house together and you guys have decided that neither one of you is going to keep it, you would rather just sell it, take the money and move on. Great. Well, what happens if it doesn't sell in 30 days, 60 days, half a year? Are you just going to let it sit on the market? My guess is that you will have a difference of opinion about what you should do to get the house sold. And those are the kinds of what if situations that you want to think about and put how it's going to work in your separation agreement. You want to think about, what if this doesn't go exactly as we hoped? We all want to put the house on the market and it sells next week. Great. You've got that situation covered. But what if it doesn't? So think about that. Think about who's going to keep paying the mortgage or keep the upkeep on the house. Who's going to pay the insurance? All of those kinds of questions you want to think through on each of the different assets you have, and then also your debts. So there's two types of debts. You're going to have secured debts, which means there's a piece of property it's attached to. So often a mortgage, car, loans are secured. And then you'll have unsecured debts, things like credit cards, personal loans, where there's no property or collateral that they're attached to. So you need to deal with those as well. If there's a joint credit card that you have that has $1,000 balance on it, who's going to pay that? And if you get it paid off, who's going to be responsible that that credit card either gets terminated or that one spouse's name gets taken off of it, so that you're not continued to be tied to each other financially going forward. So you want to think of all the financial stuff that you have, and then also questions like spousal support or maintenance or alimony. Colorado calls it maintenance. Is that going to be exchanged? How much is that going to be? And then think about personal property things. So you just went out and bought a $3,000 big screen TV for the Super Bowl, and now the marriage isn't working out and you're getting divorced. Well, what happens to the TV? That's a pretty big expense to spend. Is one of you just going to get it? Does the other one get credit for a portion of that, or are you just going to call it a wash? Things like clothing or jewelry or family heirlooms, pictures that don't always have a value associated with them, if they're really important to you or your spouse, you may want to include those as well in your separation agreement so that both of you are on the same page as to how those are going to be handled. The best separation agreements are detailed and they think about all the what ifs. The problem with ones that don't do that is they tend to cause conflict because something happens that was unforeseen or something happens we didn't talk about, and the spouses have two different ideas about how it should be handled. So if you can really sit down with your spouse and go through everything and think about all of those what ifs and how you want to handle them, you're going to have the best separation agreement possible. You probably won't cover everything. That's okay. You will cover significantly more than if you just did a cursory pass and then you forgot something major. One other thing that I will note that a lot of people forget about that you might want to consider in your separation agreement is if you have pets. I know that they're a part of our family. I have 2 dogs. I think of them as fur babies, but the courts don't. They think of them just like any other personal property. So if you have pets and you've discussed kind of who will get the dog at the end of the divorce, probably want to write that down so that it's in writing and your agreement is memorialized so that neither one of you can change your mind. So those are some things to think about for separation agreements. The more detailed, the better. The more clear, the better. You don't want to have any ambiguous language that both of you can interpret in a different way. And if you can get that all down on paper, you're doing really well to smoothly go through the divorce process, divide all the assets and debts as you need to, and move on with your life. Can't ask for anything better than that, right? So get those separation agreements in line, think through them with a lot of detail and a lot of thought, and I think you'll be really proud and happy with what you've come up with.